This is the Jpeg2RAW podcast. I'm Mike Howard. I'm broadcasting from the basement of Nav Studios here in sunny and hot Atlanta. Jpeg2RAW is a photography podcast for the amateur photographer. You can find us on the web at www.navstudios.com, and you can contact the show by emailing us at podcast@navstudios.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Flickr, and Twitter by searching for Jpeg2RAW, or just follow the links on our website. This is Jpeg2RAW, show number 14, and tonight we have our co-host, Tim Kimperly. Tim, how you doing?
Very good, Mike. Very good. How are you doing tonight?
Very good. And we have a special guest, Ali. How about you say your last name?
Elhajj.
Elhajj.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm horrible with names, so thank you for helping me with that. Ali, we generally start off with some news, and before we get into some news that Tim has, I'm going to go over some that I have. So I had, we've talked in the past before about the importance of backing up your photos. So I have a drive. It was actually a RAID 0. So I was kind of living on the edge a little bit, but RAID 0 allows for some very fast hard drive performance. But it comes at the risk if you lose one drive, you lose all the data. But I have very good backup solutions to bring all that stuff back, so I wasn't too worried about it. And actually, the hard drives themselves were fine. I think it was the controller that actually messed up. So I rebooted the computer over the weekend. This is on Saturday, and we came up. Their array was gone, which means all the photos, all the podcast files, everything, the whole thing's gone. So the first thing I did was actually I went out and bought 2 new hard drives to replace those, put them back in as non-RAID. I've decided not to go back to RAID for now. And I kept those other 2 drives just in case I needed them to try and restore something. So like in the worst case scenario, I could have those. I do have a Windows Home Server backup and another backup, and I'm still in the process. The Windows Home Server thing has been, while it is a really nice way to back up because it's an image level backup, you can do a complete restore. It's not a file-by-file backup. The problem is for whatever reason, and maybe it's me, it is extremely slow. I started it Sunday night. I had to reboot the computer tonight to get ready for the show, and it was still less than 50% done. So that's 48 hours later.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much data did you have?
Well, I was only copying over 880 gig. Which is a lot, but not for that time frame.
That's not that bad. I had a 2 terabyte hard drive go on me, I think last year, and I had to take it out of my Windows Home Server, and it took 72 hours to replace the drive, and it's because it was only streaming at like 2 meg a second.
That's exactly what mine was doing. It's like 2 meg a second. Now, as we speak, I have a secondary backup of all this stuff on another server in the house. So, yeah, I'm a little computer crazy. But that secondary backup is where I'm bringing stuff back from right now. It won't be as clean as the other one, so I'll eventually have to do it also from home server. But it's coming over at like 50 meg a second, so it's coming over really fast. And I eventually will have most of the files back that way, then get whatever I'm missing from home server. I did want to show Ali because we're going to be going over some HDR in a little bit. Some of my HDR, not so good HDR, but those files are not back yet, so I won't have that. On top of that, if you tried to come to the website today to get the podcast or do whatever, apparently the host, who I don't know where they're at, the host is DreamHost is the name of the host, had our server down all day long until about 3 this afternoon. So what I don't understand is why they don't have that like a virtual environment where a computer goes down, it just automatically falls over to another virtual machine, and then they repair that one. But for whatever reason, they didn't have it set up that way, and fortunately, they got it back up, this afternoon. So I was sweating a little bit as the day went on, and the server wasn't back up. Then on top of that, as we're getting ready for the show, during the middle of the preparation, we lost internet here. So, so you would think this is show number 13, but this is show number 14.
You'll never invite me on again.
Well, if we get past it, you know, it will, you know, no, we'll have you back on again. This is great. So that is basically my news. Tim?
Well, I had sent you a couple of articles of news the other day, and one thing that really caught me, and you kind of just brought it up, talking about the hard drive issue, and it was posted on a forum that I'm out on, Sony Alpha Forums, and they talked about how the tsunami that affected Japan impacted Thailand, and a lot of electronic manufacturers are completely submerged, and they talked about how Sony and Nikon, both of their digital camera factories, were submerged with no prospect of recovery. And I was just looking yesterday, they talked about Western Digital was also submerged, and their hard drives have been lost. And looking, if you go to Newegg, I just bought last month a couple of 2 terabyte hard drives to use for a backup solution, and they were $69 I paid. I went back onto Newegg yesterday, and they're up over $120 a hard drive. So there's definitely going to be an issue. They're talking at least 6 to 8 months before they can catch up on this. Most of the facilities that I saw over there were under at least 8 to 10 feet of water, so their entire first floor of their factories are submerged. And obviously everybody knows a hard drive is all done in sealed rooms, so all the hard drives are going to be destroyed, as well as what it's going to take to get them back up and running. And in our case, what we're talking about, photography here, looks like both Sony and Nikon are having some serious issues. And I'm looking to buy a new camera, the new Sony A77. It looks like they came into, they were manufactured, but several cameras that they make are not going to be out for a long time.
Yeah, I got it pulled up now, Tim, if you can see it. And, it says what Nikon and Sony, digital camera factory submerged, no prospect of recovery.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah, I don't know what that does for the overall production, how much they have redundancy around the world, but that definitely will hurt.
Well, from the things I was reading, it looks like over 60 to 70% of the manufacturing was in that area. Wow. So it's really and it's probably certain camera models that are being impacted, but it sounds like a lot of, I know Western Digital, which is the drives that I mainly use, they said 60% of their capacity has been impacted.
Wow, that's hard. They have the tsunami over in Japan, which is horrible, and now they have this. You're not on top of the production here. The people themselves that are living in those areas having to deal with all that.
Well, the picture showed, and the CEO of Western Digital said they're expecting 1 month before the water recedes from the area, then at least 3 months before they can clear out the area and then restart production.
And what was this? This is just floods from rain? Floods
from rain and a tsunami that hit them. Now, I didn't even hear about this. This only must have happened like 2 weeks ago, and I don't even remember that in the news.
Yeah, I don't.
They said, I think if I remember, it was either 14 or 15,000 factories were submerged.
Wow, that's horrible.
So that's going to definitely impact the holiday season. I see. I mean,
yeah, definitely. All right, well, that's not such bright news that we have for today, but it does impact. It does impact, a lot of people, including the people that live in that area.
Oh, absolutely.
So tonight we have Ali on. And we're doing something a little different. Not only are we, doing this through Google+, but we're going to talk about HDR. And this is it for those of you watching. And I'll bring us back to where you can see us. We're doing this for the first time through Google+ Hangout. And I know Ali has used this a lot. I've used it a lot. I think Tim, this is your first time using it.
This is my first time.
And it's similar to Skype, but has some very important differences in that you invite in who you want. You can leave it open where anybody can come in, and you can have up to 10 people in at a time. And on that, you also, unlike Skype, I think the person who started the chat doesn't really control it. Like on Skype, if the person calling hangs up, then the conversation's over. And here, if the person who started it gets out, the conversation keep going as long as somebody's in there. And I've heard Trey Radcliffe was, if you ever see Trey, he can start a hangout and within seconds it is maxed out. And what I heard him do the other day was he went in and just started a whole bunch of them. Start, get out, start, get out, start, get out, and left the people in there. Hopefully he said something before he got out. But his intention was to start a hangout, let those people that are there chat with each other, and then him get out and go start another one to get people to chat that way. And it was, it has very good intentions, and hopefully the people took it that way. But I know, Ali, you do a show yourself on Google+. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called the Plus Photo Show, and it's Monday nights at 9 Eastern. And it's me and Shane Strogi, who's another photographer also on Google+. And what we try to do is just have a topic every week, invite people in, and inevitably it always ends up towards, hey, let's see a couple of good shots, let's see a couple of bad shots, and we critique each other, and it's always around whatever theme we have going on that week. It's pretty. We try to keep it non-intimidating, so we don't go super technical all the time. Although we've had our moments. It's a good time.
Yeah, and one of our hosts, our guests out there in chat right now, has been on your show a couple of times. Andy, from Andy. Scotland. Yeah, it's Tim. If you've ever, you've probably never seen it, but there's a lot of good photographers on there. Lee and Shane. I don't know the other guys' names, but I think at least Shane and maybe some of the others are full-time pros. And I would if find Lee's show and follow some of those guys or circle them, whatever you call it, on Google+, because they put out some great photos, and they're willing to share what they do to help out the community. I mean, Shane, that's one of the reasons that Ali and Shane are doing this, is to help out the fellow photographers.
Yeah, it's been neat. I mean, we certainly have our areas of expertise that we share, and then every week somebody comes in and it's like, oh wow, this amazing photographer that I've never heard of, or maybe he's in my circle but I hadn't really been paying attention to. Like yesterday we had somebody who was a guru on macro, and it really blew us away. So we had somebody I learned. I'm not a big panorama guy, but we have somebody in there who's done quite a bit of that, and so it's been neat. Kind of inspire each other and learn from each other. So it's been great.
Yeah, well, everything I've heard about Google+, it is the place where photographers have congregated and seems to have taken over, maybe not taken over, but darn close to taking over Google+.
Well, we are the 99%.
Yes, we are.
That's no, it's been great, and part of that is Google+ did a great job with integration with Picasa right off the bat, in the way that they display images and allow you to have large images in the stream, which, if you notice, if you're on Facebook now, you'll see that the images that you post in Facebook are a little bit larger, and that's due in part to Google+ just doing a great job of it right off the bat, and that drew a lot of photographers, me included, in. So it's been great. I've got nothing but good things to say about it.
I've actually heard that. At first, I heard Facebook was always the smallest images. It looked like they were trying to save space on their servers.
Yeah.
And if you ever wanted to recover a picture from there, that was not the place to get it. But I have heard recently they have increased the size of the photos that are in there.
Yeah, they are larger now.
Yeah, when Google Plus first came out, I was wondering if it would be a Facebook killer, but I think there's really room for both. They kind of serve a little bit different purpose. And part of what I wanted to have you on here for tonight, main thing is I want to talk about your HDR, because you're excellent at HDR, but talk about Google Plus and why it's important for photographers to be there.
Yeah, I mean, for Google Plus, the one big thing obviously is Hangouts. So, being able to share your screen. I've done Hangouts where, if you're incredibly bored, I
think you're breaking up a little bit.
It's got to be because he's using a Mac.
I wonder if he heard you. And that this is not necessarily a Google Plus thing, but just like Skype, they can have issues. So if we lose him, we have to invite him back in. I don't know what's going on. He's down in Florida. Maybe they're having some bad weather down there. And Rachel in chat saying she uses a Mac, so be careful, Tim. Apparently there's a few people who use Macs. Hold on. We're going to see if we can't get him back. And we just lost him. So You guys can watch me do it here. I'm going to invite.
Yeah, we're having some technical difficulties as we're talking about
So
Google Plus.
you're watching as I do it. I'm inviting the group. So you create a circle. We'll do a little bit of showing of Google Plus as we talk here.
It's a little education. That's what we're talking about with it.
Yeah. So let's see if I can bring my window over here. And so I have a little circle that right now just has Tim and Lee in it. And I just invited those people into the circle. And I created this circle just tonight, so added those two in there. And then, you know, you do that and only those two can come in. Now, if I opened it up, when I go to do this, I could also, Tim, I could also say, you know, where is it? Public, and then anybody can come in.
Right, okay.
But for something like this, we don't want everybody.
Right, we want to keep
in.
it limited, so you don't have people talking over each other.
Yeah. That's, you know, in this case, we want to do a Google Plus Hangout afterwards, if we can, and then it'll be more open to everybody who wants to come. So while we're waiting, there's one of his HDR pictures. If I can shrink this to the right size.
I'll tell you, that is a nice looking HDR picture.
He has quite a few nice looking ones out here, and hopefully we can get him back, or else this is going to be a problem.
Looks like chat likes the picture as well.
I like the water tower. And you know, just like with Rachel's shots last week, you know, you're not seeing the true quality. You need to, if you're not on Google Plus, you'll need to get on Google Plus and go see Ali in his photos out there, so you can, you know, see the true quality. I think Google Plus, Tim, is it really displays the images really nice.
Well, obviously we've seen that Skype's pictures are not, or at least Skype's video is not that good, or what comes up with it, and you're not able to do that anyway the same way. Oh, here he is.
Hey, we had a network blip on my end. I love my internet service provider.
You know what, Ali, that just goes to with what I've been facing this week. Yeah, if this show gets off without any more trouble, it'll be a miracle. Yeah. So now, you know, now we're just waiting for something to happen to Tim. But we were just talking about some of your photos, and I was showing people how to invite, you know, how I created a circle, and how right now that circle for this hangout only has the two of you in it. So when I invite the circle, only the two of you can come in it. But I think when you left off, we were talking about, you know, why is Google Plus important for photographers? Yeah.
So what I was saying was, the one great thing is Hangouts, and you know, initially when they came out, everybody was kind of like, "Oh, what are these things going to be like?" But they've been nothing but wonderful. And I've sat in on several Hangouts where people were photo editing, and I've done my own. Where, hey, you want to learn about photomatics? Well, hey, I just went out and shot. I'm working on it right now, and it's you know, A to Z. This is me working on the shot, and this is how I'm developing it. And not to mention that it's really just you've had a lot of access to photographers you normally would not get to speak to through Google Plus, and everybody's been really embracing it and really friendly and developing the community. So nothing but good thing to say about it, like I said before. But if you want to be in a place where the level of conversation can elevate your photography right now, Google Plus is the place to be.
Yeah, you mentioned you can talk with photographers. You know, you mentioned any big photography name out there, Trey Ratcliffe, Scott Kelby. You know, some of those guys. And if you're lucky enough to be one of the ones, you can get in a chat with them. And even outside of that, I mean, sometimes you can just talk with them through typing a message. I know you mentioned Shane's on your show, and I had been following Shane for a while because he's just such an excellent photographer. And I remember I had one time commented on one of his photos, and when he commented back, it's like, oh my gosh, Shane just said something to me. And then, you know, what do you know? I think last week I was on your show for a little bit. I came in at the end of it, And I was, now I'm actually talking with Ali and Shane and some of these other guys who are great photographers too. And I hope nobody missed what you said earlier about you can share your screen here, and people have done live editing, so you can watch them edit and watch them go through the process.
Yeah, and I'm pretty big on that. So if you are on Google Plus and you ever want to do that, just drop me a line. If you're working on something that, I don't know, you want to show, like you discovered something, or hey, you want to learn something that I'm doing, or want to see how I worked on some of my shots, let me know. I've either done it where I'm working on a new shot, or sometimes I'll pull up a shot and I'll show you layer by layer. This is what I did in this layer, and this is what I did in that layer, and you can see the shot evolve through. So everyone's been really cool on Google Plus, and like I said, it's a great place to learn right now.
Now, Rachel in chat has a question. She is a professional photographer, and this is one of the things why I think Facebook still, for a photographer, still is a good place to be.
Yep.
And her question is, have you seen impact with clients?
Well, Google Plus and Facebook are two different sort of they're two different communities. Let me give you just an example. I can work on a shot for 2 hours. Like the other night, I went out and I shot this amazing sunset and worked on it, and it had this gorgeous. There was just like this face in the clouds. It looked like a child reaching to the left. It's this amazing thing. Posted it on Facebook. Oh, nice sunset. Maybe 1 or 2 people. This morning I woke up. I just got an iPhone 4S, and I said, let me take a test shot, and I took a blurry shot of my son. Really cute shot, but he was just like a regular, boring shot. And then everybody was like, "Oh, what a most amazing shot! I want to hire you to do my family shots." So now that's with Facebook. Now on Google Plus, if I would have posted my son's shot, people would have just gone by the stream. But with the sunset shot, people are like, "Oh, how did you do that? What did you use?" and so on. So I think Google Plus is going to be more of, if you're doing workshops and teaching, you're going to see more engagement there than you would see on Facebook, and then vice versa.
So Google Plus may be more for interaction with other photographers, and Facebook with clients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And there's a place for both, because one, actually, if you're in the business, you need clients.
Yep.
But also learning from other photographers is key, especially for me as an amateur. I'm not a professional. It is a huge resource. Watching what other people do. There's some amazing photographers out there, and they're so willing to share what they're doing.
Yeah, and the thing right now, I don't think this will always be the case.
Yeah.
Kind of what you see with Google Plus is sort of the leadership factor, which is, people with that skill set and who are passionate about photography want there. But everybody who just has all these friends on Facebook, they don't want to leave Facebook quite yet. Now, everybody who's sort of an expert and want to say, no, you got to come to Google Plus, it's going to take a while for the transition to happen in some equilibrium to take place. So Facebook remains a place for people that and already have relationships with.
Yeah, like my wife and my mom, they have all these relationships on Facebook, and for them, their thought is, why I don't need another one. I'm fine with what I got, and that's why I think both of these can coexist. I think Google Plus is over 40 million people now.
Yep.
And Facebook, of course, is 700-800 million, whatever it is. It's just huge. So there's really a place for both of these.
Sure.
But we don't want to spend the whole show talking about Google Plus, because we got another great topic that I love. This next topic, I'm addicted to this next topic. I have trouble wanting to shoot anything but this, and that is HDR. And so for our guest who may have never shot HDR, either out here in chat or listening later, can you tell us a little bit about what HDR is?
Sure. So HDR stands for high dynamic range. And to get a little technical, your eye can see about 11 stops. Your camera can see about 5 to 6 stops. That means the range of light that your eye sees, the contrast range that your eye sees, is about 200%. They're twice as much as what your camera can see. So think of it this way: if you've ever seen somebody standing in front of a very bright window, you can make out that face pretty well, and you can kind of still see what's outside the window. But if you take a picture with a camera, you'll either get the face that's well lit and the window just this big white slab that's behind them, or you'll get what's outside the window nice and exposed with your camera, but the person's face will be completely black. So HDR allows you the ability, by combining multiple exposures, to have both those subjects well exposed. And that's, so you'll hear a lot about HDR. Well, you run around with a tripod and you shoot -2, 0, and then +2, and then you combine them in software, and then you have the resultant image after tone mapping, which is, we can talk about that in a little bit, but that's HDR in a nutshell.
Okay, so it's multiple exposures blended together to create one image.
Exactly.
Okay. Exactly. And you have wrote a nice article on your website, and I have, if you're looking at the chat, I have the link to his website under his name, and I'll put it in the show notes too. But I thought I had that pulled up, but where do I get to that article? Right here, shooting for HDR. I'm gonna need to make the screen a little bigger. But do you want to walk us through a little bit of this about shooting for HDR, about what you need to do to take HDR?
What I'll do is I'll go to my site too, so we'll do them in order.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it later, it'll be easier. So the reason I did this was you see a lot of tutorials on how to edit HDR. How to use Photomatics or Nix, and how to move the sliders and what the sliders do. But I think that sort of contributed to this idea that HDR is just something you do in post, and it's not really photography. You just Google "I hate HDR," and you'll see about 100 articles, saying why HDR is not real. Not a rip, but so what I wanted to do was to put something together to kind of explain HDR from beginning to end, because a lot of times people forget the most important part of HDR, which is capturing the image. Because if you screw up there, there's nothing that you can do to recover that later on. So I wrote this shooting for HDR tutorial, and it starts. It's got I kept it really short. It's about 10 points. Each one is, I think the longest one is 3 lines long. So you're not going to be intimidated by reading it. It's nice and simple. So the beginning is, use a tripod. So what you're doing with HDR is you're capturing multiple exposures. So to do that in post, what you need to do is merge those exposures. So you want to kind of bring them in to where they're perfectly aligned. So if you don't use a tripod, you're going to have to do it manually, and even then there's going to be minor shifts in focus that will reduce the sharpness of your image.
Right.
So use a tripod, and then second part of that is use either a cable release, or my preferred method, because I try to carry as little as I can when I go out, because I'm already carrying a tripod. I got a camera bag. I usually have some water, so I don't. The less stuff I have to carry, the better. So I use a 2-second timer, and what I'll do is I'll use mirror lockup, 2-second timer, and let it go from there. And then set your white balance, and it's something that people are intimidated with, but your white balance is a pretty easy thing to do. With Canon, if you want to just sort of experiment, just use live view, and then mess with your white balance settings, and you can see the image, what the image is going to look like, how it's going to change, depending on what white balance you use. So
how are you setting your white balance? Are you setting it to a specific Kelvin number, or are you going off a gray card, or what are you doing?
It depends. Sometimes I'll take my Expo disc with me, and I'll use that, and I'll just point at the light source, and get what the most dominant light is, and use that. Sometimes I'll use the Kelvin temperature, just because I'm looking at it and I really just kind of want to dial it in. But 99% of the time, I'm choosing one of the presets. So I know if it's, I know if it's cloudy, or if I'm under tungsten, or if I'm under fluorescent, and and but you know what? Sometimes you don't want perfect white balance. I mean, sometimes you want a color shift in your image. So experiment with your settings, see the look that comes out based on what you set it at, and just go with that. I mean, white doesn't have to be white. So,
right.
And I've got a couple images where you'll see, I have a green cast, and I was shooting a parking lot, and it was at night, and as I was messing with my white balance, I found that I had a green cast in the background. I really liked it, so I just left it.
Yeah, what I have basically learned is it's better to know the rules before you start breaking them. So while you are good enough to intentionally create a green cast, someone who doesn't really know white balance may unintentionally create a green cast, and so it's better to pay attention to your white balance. And I do carry around a gray card. The funny thing is I have two gray cards. I have the original 18% gray, which is a little bit darker gray, and in the back of Scott Kelby's Lightroom book, there's a gray card back there that's a much lighter gray. And I've white balanced off both of them, and it's really, the difference is just so subtle, I didn't really notice much of a difference. So either one, I like to carry that around, or like you, sometimes I will set a certain Kelvin number that I like.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you kind of know what you're doing, it works out well. If you don't, it's not breaking the rules if somebody tells you about it later. That's kind of what I say. You're breaking the rules when you know that you're doing it. So
yeah.
But you know what? Sometimes happy mistakes are nice to get. Here, I'll pull up that shot really quick. I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Well, I have to say I have not become comfortable yet with using white balance.
So
and I know I've tried it, but it's so easy to adjust it afterwards in post-processing and using Lightroom. But I know I want to start using it.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is if you're shooting RAW, you fix it later. It's not the end of the world. You don't have to get everything in camera. Yeah, do as much as you can in camera, but it's okay.
Now, is this image on your site somewhere? Because for people who are watching, what we're doing right now is Ali is sharing his screen through Google Chat, and I've zoomed in on it. So the quality is going to be a little degraded. Yeah. But actually, it looks fairly decent here in the chat.
Doesn't look much different than what I see in Google Plus.
Yeah, it's amazing. So what program is that you have pulled up?
Oh, this is Bridge.
Okay, so this is Bridge. See, I haven't used Bridge ever since I got Lightroom.
Yeah, I'm a Bridge user. I just spend most of my time in Photoshop.
Yeah.
I just haven't, and I don't do 1,000 photos at a time, so I find that mostly it's Bridge, Photomatics, and then straight into Photoshop, and then, like I said on my Google Plus profile, I spend my time creating more layers than any two people need. So, that image is on my site. I believe it's in my portfolio folder. If not, if you go to my site and search for abandoned spaces, you'll find it there.
I'm going to search real quick through here and see if I... No, I don't see it. Oh, well.
Yeah, no worries.
So the first tip in HDR is to shoot off a tripod.
Yes.
Because you're taking multiple images, anywhere from 3 to... What's the max you would normally take?
Well, it depends. I'd say if you're getting started, just do 2 under, 2 over, and 1 at whatever you're exposing for. But it will depend, because remember, HDR is about capturing range. So there are certain things in your scene that are going to be very bright, and typically those are, for me, sky and lights. So those may be 5, 6, 7 stops over whatever you're exposing for. So make sure that you shoot the range up to there. Or another thing that you can do, which I've done, is I'll shoot just an exposure for the lights, and then after I do my tone mapping, I'll go back in Photoshop, and then using the layer masks, I'll open the layer up just to whatever it is I want to capture, and then bring those back in, because they may be just overblown when I originally shot it. So, but 3, 5, 7 is the most I think the most I've done is, I think 7 is the highest I've ever gone over. It's a little bit harder with Canon, by the way, because with Nikon you can auto bracket 7.
I think I can do 9.
I think you can do 9. You just rub it in. So
I think I can do 5.
yeah, we can do 3. And if anyone from Canon is listening, please fix this for us.
And for
I don't
those
think we have everybody from there yet.
Yeah, for those who don't know, when Ali's saying 2 over, 2 under, you mean 2 stops over, 2 stops under.
Yes.
So you're taking 3 images. One that's as a camera would normally take it, I imagine, that's 0.
Yep.
And then 2 stops over, 2 stops under.
Yeah, and it's not. And again, it depends on how you're metering. So, but yes, it's 0, then +2 and -2. So.
Yeah, and that's just a starting point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I got tons of questions, but I'm going to try and not stop you too much as you go through your list. So we're on. You did number 3, which is set to white balance.
Yeah.
And now number 4 is shoot manual.
Yeah.
Mike.
It's a past joke. Tim and I think Rachel out there in chat and probably some others, they all shoot manual mode. I usually shoot in aperture mode.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just teasing. You know what? If you're shooting a lot of action and things are moving a lot, I shoot a lot of aperture too, but 99% I'm shooting manual, simply because I'm creating an effect. So if I want the water to be nice and smooth and silky, then I don't want the aperture to decide the shutter speed, and I don't want my shutter speed to decide my aperture. So I'll just shoot manual. It just gives me much more control. And don't be afraid of it. I tell people, just what's the worst that you can do? You're not going to pay to develop the film. So just go out one day and screw up on manual.
I agree. That's exactly what helped me switch over from a shooting aperture or shutter priority. And a friend of mine had talked me into doing it. And you know what? I've been doing it for probably about a year now. And other than my son's soccer games where I probably switch over to aperture priority, I'm shooting manual. And anything where I have time to set it up, I'm doing manual. And no doubt my flash photography is by far improved, as well as I think a lot of my other photography, at least in my eyes. I don't think I'd put them up on Google Plus yet.
Well, I mean, I'm with you. I was a big, aperture priority shooter, and then as I got into more and more HDR, I got frustrated with, well, no, I didn't want this, or I didn't want that, or I still, I would, I'll adjust the EV, exposure. For exposure adjustments up and down because I was shooting aperture priority, and I said, what the heck, I'll just shoot manual. And I think the biggest thing that intimidates people is, how do I figure out the exposure? Or how do I figure out what's correctly exposed? And the answer to that is very simple. Look at the meter inside your viewfinder. It tells you right then and there. So use that as your starting point, and then adjust your aperture and shutter speed to achieve the effect that you want. Now that's maybe a little bit easier said than done if you haven't done it before, but spend a couple of days or a weekend or so with it, and I think you're really going to appreciate it. So.
Well, I have to agree. Since I went to manual, I definitely notice now that I utilize a viewfinder a lot more than I ever did before. I am looking all the time at what the meter is saying inside the camera as to whether it's going to be overexposed, underexposed, is it correctly exposed. And probably the biggest thing for people to get used to, other than looking in a viewfinder suddenly, is now understanding what the dials on your camera, or at least in my mode, what does a front dial do and what does a back dial do? Which way are you spinning it to get it to the aperture to move to the correct way, so that you don't have to think about it every time you're using it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to know how to use your camera. And again, excuse me, sorry, it's a little bit intimidating at first, but once you play with it, it's okay. Make mistakes. Maybe that's what M stands for, is mistakes.
There you go.
And I should mention, Lee, you have a cold or something right now, don't you? You're not feeling so hot.
Yeah, I'll apologize. I've been a little bit under the weather the last couple of days.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you coming out.
Oh, no problem.
Other than the cough, you'd never know. I remember it from last night on the show. I could tell you weren't feeling too good.
Yeah, I actually had to duck out a little bit early, and I've had a pretty punishing schedule. I'm heading to the Middle East in December, and then we're planning another trip for a photo workshop in mid 2012. So it's all this planning's happening and fundraising and all this kind of fun stuff. So.
Well, I gotta say, I feel really bad for you guys. You know, both living down in the south. The heat in my house actually went on yesterday, so.
We've been having great weather here.
Yeah, it got down to 65 here. I turned on the heat.
I woke up and it was 41 this morning. So.
You turned on the heat when it was 65.
Yeah, my children just don't know how to deal with it when it gets cold. It's funny.
Well, I grew up in South Louisiana, so I know the hot. I don't know where you are if it's very humid, but when I grew up, it was crazy humid.
Yeah, I'm in Florida, so it does get pretty warm.
Well, your next thing is I almost skipped over set spot meter and set aperture.
Yeah, so keep your aperture stable, and meter on whatever it is in the scene that you want to be your starting point. That would be your zero exposure. I try to choose that. I can't say I've never used evaluative metering, but I usually spot meter on whatever it is. And sometimes I'll spot meter just to figure out, okay, where are the lights? How much brighter are they going to be? How far do I have to go to get them? How much range do I need to capture? But you can also just, depending on the scene, and it's going to vary. So pick what you want to meter on, and then set your aperture, because your aperture is not going to change across your exposures. Otherwise, you get weird focus shifts, and you don't want that.
Yeah, and I think number 7 coming up, we'll talk about focus, which that was a great tip. I never really thought about that one until I read your list here, because I've never done that, and I want to go out and try that and see what kind of a difference it makes. But your next one is set your ISO as low as possible.
Yeah, so tone mapping will multiply your noise, your ISO noise, and tone mapping is just what you do to get your image into a color space that's visible on your monitor. You don't have to do that yourself. Actually, the software will handle that for you. But that whole process of creating the HDR combo image, so to speak, will increase ISO. So try to keep it as low as you can. 100 is usually, I'm usually at 100 to 200. Now, I say that, but there are times when you want to bump it up higher, and that is, maybe we should try to keep this simple, but forgive me, I'll go off on a tangent, because this happened to me the other night. I was shooting the Hat at Disney's Hollywood Studios, and if you're shooting a long exposure at low ISO, you can get burn-in from reflections. So sometimes you want to go higher, but again, if you're just starting out, just keep it low, experiment with it, and you'll start noticing things that you need to adjust for later on. But keep it low, and the lower the better.
Yeah, I always try and shoot. My camera goes to 100. I have a Nikon D2X, and that's what I try and shoot at, is 100.
Yep.
So let's see, number 7. Yeah, and this
is the big one. This is the one that people forget about.
Yeah, the one I didn't even think about. So yeah.
Yeah, this is the one that got me a couple times, which is, you're shooting multiple exposures, so your focus can shift. Just like your white balance can shift across exposures, so can your focus. So focus, or compose focus, and turn off your autofocus, and now you're locked in. This is what you're going to be grabbing for. And from there, and I don't have it here, I usually lock up my mirror, and then again, because I just want as little or as few things that can affect the image, or a few things that can inject blur into the image. So if your mirror is locked up, it doesn't have to move every single time for each of the exposures that you're going to take. So,
well, I see number 7 and number 5, the setting aperture and the focusing, kind of along the same lines, because you don't want to change the depth of field on the pictures by having a different aperture, which would change, almost in essence, be changing the focus.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I don't think I ever realized the setting the focus either. So I'm going to actually print this off and keep it with me for the next time I take pictures.
You mentioned how you use a cable release, or you use one of the things I use, since I have Nikon, Trey Ratcliffe's method, where you go into the interval timer.
Yep.
And so you just, you set it to one shot in interval timer, and I have like a 2 or 3 second delay.
Yeah.
And I just go, I have it, I can't probably recreate it now, but if I had the camera, I could. I think it's right, left, down, on, something like that in the menu. And I just, hands off, and 2-3 seconds later, it starts taking the images.
Yep.
The one thing I probably need to add to that is the mirror lockup.
Yeah. So yeah, with with Canon, what you do is when you lock up the mirror, it will actually, or sorry, when you use live view, it will lock up the mirror.
Okay.
So.
Oh, that's right. That makes sense.
Yeah. And it will, and I'm like you, Mike. I use a 2 second delay as well.
Yeah.
So.
But now you can't. If you're going to shoot autofocus to get the focus, you can't do it with the mirror up. You'd actually have to lock the focus in before that.
Exactly. Yeah. You lock the focus first, and then
you can flip up
the mirror and use live view, and then go from there.
And that's the one thing I wasn't doing that I need to try is, I would set the focus, look through it, and then do my menu thing and let go. So what you're saying is that, as it takes each one of those 3, 5, 7, whatever shots, it might shift the focus.
It's possible. You just want to minimize it. So just take as much out of the equation as you can.
Absolutely. So I want to go in and set. Once I have focused, is turn autofocus off and then let it go.
Yeah. The thing is just to remember to turn it back on if you recompose later for another shot. I've done that, so you'll screw that up a couple times and then you'll remember. But
like you said, it's digital, so.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a big deal.
Okay, number 8 is lock your tripod.
Yeah, lock it up. So I have a Manfrotto head that's got 3 controls on it, one for friction and one for pan and one for the head. So once you have everything all set, now this is sort of your pre-launch sequence. So lock it up and then shoot and go.
Yeah, because you don't want that camera moving at all. You want it locked down.
Not at all. Yeah, you just spend a whole bunch of time making sure that nothing can shift, and the last thing you want is just if it's a little bit windy or whatever, or you don't have everything nice and tight, and you have a heavy lens on there, it could just just go down even just a little bit. So lock it once you have it where you want it.
Now you're talking about windy. What if in your scene are trees?
Oh, don't get me started on trees.
Because you can lock down your camera, but there's not anything you can do about those trees.
Well, you can deghost them later. Let's say in Photomatics, you can choose one of the exposures. So you can go in. Let's say you'll circle the area, and then you say, "Give me the -2." So as long as it's not a long exposure, if your shutter speed is fast enough, you can get rid of the ghosting. But truth be told, between you and me, those out there, I don't like trees. Every time I go to shoot a scene with trees, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a pain.
I know. There's been several times here recently where I wanted to go out and start taking some shots of the colors, the fall colors. Yeah. And I wanted, if I'm going to take a landscape, I want to do HDR now. I don't want to, I find trouble taking anything but that. And I go outside and it's just super windy. Forget that. It's so windy. Work. Yeah, so windy I'm not going to be able to get it to work.
Yeah. That's why I tend to shoot a lot of buildings. They don't move. And they're always on time, and you don't have to feed them, and they always show up on time for the shoot. It's great.
Yeah. Now, your next one is shoot, evaluate, and adjust.
Yeah, so, I just gave you 8 or 9 things that, you need to look at. You're not going to nail it the first time, so look at your shot. I mean, some people don't want to look at the back of the camera. They feel that makes them less of a photographer, but that's what it's there for. So
absolutely.
Unless you have infinite funds and can fly out again to wherever it is that you're shooting, yeah, sure, you can try that method, or you can just look at the back of the camera and figure it out. See you see where you're at. Now, some people say, look at the histogram. Che was always talking about, look at the histogram and make sure that it moves, from left to right like a wave. Right. And yeah, that is valuable. But for me, what I found to be more valuable is just looking and saying, okay, I just shot 3 exposures, but you know what? The sky is still way too bright. I didn't capture any detail in the sky, so I've got to, I've got to underexpose again, or something is still too dark and I really need to expose for it. So yeah, just play around and adjust, and there's nothing that says that when you do your combination later on in your software that you have to use 3 images in a row. You don't have to use image 100, 101, and 102. You can choose which images that you want. So
if you take a 5-7 shot series, you don't have to use all 5 or 7.
No, you don't. I mean, it's usually preferable that you do, simply because if there's too far of a jump between stops. But the thing is let's say you take 20 images and you say, okay, well, these are close together, and then maybe from different sets, you can just combine them, or you'll see something in one that you didn't like, but you liked it, and from another set, you can just bring that one in and choose those ones to go to Photomatics. Another thing that you can do later, too, is let's say you do your tone mapping and you're still not happy about it. You use your tone mapped image, and then you go back into Photoshop and use layer masks, and then bring whatever you want in. So if you don't know layer masks and want to do HDR, get to know layer masks. You will need them.
Well, and I want to get to the post-processing here in a minute.
Sure.
But so your last one is consider registering camera user settings.
Yeah, this is huge. This is probably, of all the tips, this is the one to remember, because you're gonna go and you're gonna shoot multiple scenes, and you want a starting point. So think about all the things that we talked about. Set your white balance, make sure you're auto bracketing, make sure you're spot metering, make sure you have 2-second interval, mirror lockup, and so on. So if you don't, and let me see if I can grab my camera real quick. I don't know if this will come through, but we'll give it a whirl. But so if you look at the top of my camera here, you can see there's C1 and C2 right up top.
Let me bring that into the chat. Hold on. 1 second.
Sure. I'll hold it up.
See if you're getting this later.
Yep.
You're missing all this great stuff live. Okay.
No worries. I mean, I don't want to screw up your show.
No, I'm talking to the people who are listening to us later.
Oh, okay.
See, if you don't come out here live, you miss some of this stuff. Although I guess you get to see this later, yeah.
Yeah, you'll get to see it on the...
Well, if you're only listening to the audio stream, you miss this, that's for sure.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. So we don't want Ali to have to hold this any longer than he has to. Go ahead.
So you've got, on my camera, I've got 2 modes, and what I can do is I can, let's say set my camera at C1, set up everything that we just talked about, and then register that as a user mode. Or register that as a user setting. So from there, I can go back to manual and or aperture priority or green or whatever. I can shoot however I want. But once I move the dial back to C1, every setting that I had saved comes back. So that will save you a ton of time, because otherwise especially if you're starting out at the beginning, you'll go out there and you go, oh, what did I forget? You'll do everything, and then you get home and realize, oh man, I was shooting JPEG. Well, JPEG has far less dynamic range in it than the raw image does. So, you'll go back out there, and then you might forget something else. But if you just take the time and register a mode, it'll be nice and simple. And at the time that I did this, I had F11 at 160, ISO 100, 2-second timer, auto exposure bracketing for 3 stops, and move my dial to C1, and my camera is ready to go. My little HDR mode, so to speak.
Very nice.
Well, I got to say, as we're talking here, I'm setting up my my memory recall to this, because my camera does have it as well. And I never really had a reason to use the memory recall, and I'm going to set it up for it.
Yeah, it'll make it much easier.
And Andy, let's see, Andy's asking, is that on an Nikon? I don't think we have a dial like you do, but I think in the menu settings you can have things, settings. I think I can have, on my camera at least, I can have 4 menu buckets or whatever it is. I don't know what they call them.
Huh.
Well, my camera has it as well.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a menu bank, so I can have it set up to different things. I used to do that when I was shooting a lot of soccer. I had like a setup that I wanted to use in the morning when it was in bad light or late in the afternoon, and then I had another setup for when the sun was better. So I would do that, but I don't have a dial like they do in the Canons.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
everybody
guess
does.
there is something better on the Canon.
One for Canon. You guys still have us on auto bracketing, so
Yeah, I wish
Yeah.
I had 7.
yeah, me too. I'll
So
settle for 5.
Yeah.
You know,
So-
one of the things that one of the news stories that people were talking about a while back was, in the future, will be your camera will be able to download apps. And I thought, well, that would just be great. I want I want my viewfinder to have the rule of thirds on there, and I want my auto bracketing any way I want. That would be wonderful to have.
yeah, I mean it's just software in there. Why I don't know why they couldn't do that.
Yeah,
You got the hardware, but you got a software interface. You could do something like that.
yeah, that I don't know.
I guess Nikon, Canon, they want to have more control
Mm-hmm.
over it, and maybe that's why they haven't opened it up.
Yep.
But
Probably.
whatever. So, one of the first questions is, how do you choose what makes a good HDR shot versus in not so good? Or is this just basically early morning, late afternoon? What about middle day?
Well, again, it's all about dynamic range. So yeah, you could shoot middle of the day, and you can get say you're shooting a building, and you've got the sky as well that you want to get, or the typical one is like an interior. That's the one that gets everybody. But it's all about range. So I would say if you're starting out, try not to shoot at night, because you'll get to tone mapping and you'll see that your sky will turn into a noisy mess. So
Oh yes, that's what I had happen to me. Absolutely horrible.
yeah. It will, because the sky's so dark, and then it's trying to figure out how to even up the exposure, and it just keeps brightening it and brightening it and brightening it, and all you start seeing is this noise. You still, the rules of photography don't necessarily change. You still need good light. If you have a subject, and I don't know, let's say you're shooting in a building and it's bright, and then there's a tree right over it, and you get shadows and bright spots. HDR is not going to do anything for you. It's just, you're still going to see those. So you still need good light. I love to go out, right, not right at the golden hour, but just a little bit after, so you get a little bit more drama out of the sky. I'll pull up an image and I'll show you.
Can you
what
see
I mean.
chat right now? It looks like it may be a church. I got a photo of yours from a church.
Yeah, that one was.
You're talking about indoor shots. I thought this is a really nice indoor shot.
Oh, let me see. I don't see the chat. If you could paste that, because I think I ended up closing my.
Yeah. And again, I'll tell chat, you need to go out to Ali's Google Plus ID, or whatever you call it, his account, whatever, and look at the photos there, because looking at it here in chat just doesn't do it justice. It is just the colors are wonderful. It's really sharp. It's a really nice image.
Yeah, this is St. Augustine. So I got a few good shots that day. This one was one of my favorites. This is a church. I believe it's First United Methodist, and we had just parked, and the kids were hungry. And my wife was like, "You see church, don't you?" And I love shooting churches. And if you live in Europe, I think it's totally unfair that you guys have all the cool churches. But this one was really nice on the inside, and I shot. Gosh, I don't know how many exposures I shot for this one, but you still need good even light. So you can see there the light is pretty even. I had a couple of issues with the windows, and I think I ended up going in and just layer masking some of those back in. I know for a fact that on the chandelier up there at the top, it was a bit dark, so I ended up using a quick mask on that and brightening it a little bit. But the rules are not, you're not gonna save a shot by using HDR, or if it's completely dark, your HDR is not gonna work for you. So it's all about capturing dynamic range, and there was a lot of dynamic range in this one because you had the dark pews, you had the red carpet, you had these really bright windows, and then you had that area in the middle near the pulpit, which was very dark. So and just the tone mapping there really helped bring them out.
So do you remember how many shots this was?
That one I honestly don't remember. That was a couple months ago.
Okay. But so you take this shot, and I think Andy had asked one point, how do you know that you got the shot? I mean, you're taking however many bracket shots, 3, 5, 7, whatever. But how do you know? Okay, I've got it, honey. I can come now. You know, because your wife and kids are waiting.
Yeah, it's when I know that after I've shot it, and I look at all the exposures, and I can say, okay, in this exposure I captured the windows. In this exposure I've captured the area around the windows, and that's well exposed. In this exposure I captured the back. And then at that point, once I know that I have an exposure for everything, I know I've got it and I can go.
Are you doing a spot meter off those different spots, like the bright spot, the middle spot, and the dark spot?
Yeah, I'll try to figure out. Before I shoot, I'll look at it and go, okay, well, gosh, that's let me see how dark this is. So I don't carry like a meter around with me. I'll just approximate it with the camera because it's always easier for me just to even though I've got it on a tripod, I'll try to just at least move the dial to move my shutter speed up or down so I can just capture more. So it's always okay to just capture more, and you can always fiddle with it later.
Yeah.
Well, let me show you one where we were talking about how many shots do you need. So here's this one's maybe a little bit more complicated of a shot. Let me try to get this as big as I can. So this was
somebody likes Disney pictures.
Yeah, I'll be coming back to that one, Tim, because that one is freaking awesome. We're not going to be able to spend time on every one of these, but before we end the show, I want to just kind of slowly, go through them so people out in chat and the people who get this later can see. Because why is this not working? You've got a lot of wonderful HDR shots out there. Okay, I've tried to zoom in on that one.
Okay, so this one here, what I felt with this one when I shot it, I really wanted the sky. I knew I got the sky, but when I processed it, I felt like, gosh, the detail in the sky was lost. So I actually did tone mapping twice. I tone mapped with 2 images for the sky, and then I tone mapped with 3 images for the building, and then I brought them in together, separate layers, and then opened up on the building. So you have to sort of have vision for what you want to get, and don't get me wrong, it's not like you're going to go out every time and you're going to capture it perfectly. And it's going to be great. Sometimes you're going to experiment and things just aren't going to come out. But the more you do the work, you'll find that your mistakes will get fewer, and you'll be able to get what you went for right off the bat. So it's all about what do you want to see in the shot. Do you have enough exposures to get the level of detail that you want?
So let's go back to that. What you just said a second. You're taking a shot. You're taking a multiple bracket shot. You bring it into Photomatics. That's software you can use to do the tone mapping. You could also you had mentioned earlier Nick. That's Nick has HDR Effects Pro.
Yep.
And I have that for the Lightroom version of that. Where it ties in the Lightroom. I think you can buy the version that works either standalone or with Photoshop. I can't remember. But okay, so you do your editing, you do your combination inside of there, but you're not done after you're done in Nick or Photomatics. You then need to bring the image into the Photoshop. And just as a wild guess, how much of the work do you think you do in Photomatics versus Photoshop after the fact? Just percentage-wise, maybe.
Well, okay, so
putting you on the spot.
Yeah, well, no, that's fine. Some people say I'm OCD, but I tell them I'm CBO because that's in alphabetical order. So, I spent about 15, maybe 20 minutes, maybe not even that long, in Photomatics, and easily an hour or so, maybe longer, in Photoshop, just to simply get everything that I want. Layer masks, like I said, I'm using a lot of layers, and I usually use another piece of software which is called Topaz Adjust, which I use after tone mapping as well to bring out some detail. But what will happen with tone mapping sometimes, and let me go back to this image, and I'll tell you some of the problems that you can get into. Let's see here. I've got a lot of windows open in multiple monitors.
Yeah, one question we want to get to before we end is Andy had asked, how do you deal with the glow around trees and buildings? And I probably have an image that can display some of that glow. I think it's an actually good image, but the glow, I wish I knew how to get rid of some of that. So go ahead with what you're saying, but let's come back to that.
Okay, so, well, maybe we could talk about this image right here, because I had that issue right with this image right here. But so you're talking about haloing. So if you can see, I don't know if you can see my mouse here, but I had haloing all up right in here.
Yeah.
And you can take care of that in multiple ways. One is to have enough exposures. The other is to reduce your strength, or I believe micro contrast in Photomatics. If you move those sliders a little bit, and maybe if we get together next time, or if you catch me on Google Plus, we can kind of sit through and do it. My most common way that I do is I'll bring in the original image, and then I will adjust the exposure on it to where it's similar to what I had after tone mapping, and I'll open up a layer mask for that area so it looks very natural. Okay. If you try to dodge or burn it, you're gonna. I've done that. It's going to be a long night.
Yeah, and layer mask. Tim, have you ever done layer mask?
No, I did not.
To me, maybe I'm an accountant, so I don't have the same creativity as Ali and a lot of the other people we had on the show. So I'm one of my downfalls. But layer mask is something to me that I just kind of clicked the other day. You're talking about where you paint with black or paint with white.
Yep.
Yeah, and for whatever reason, that seems like such a hard concept for me. Paint with black, paint with white. What are you talking about? I don't want the photo to be black or white. I want the colors to come through. But once you do it and play with it, it is just amazing what you can do with that, and it is so powerful.
Well, I got a question then. Did you use your tablet for that?
No, I do all my processing, believe it or not, on a 15-inch MacBook Pro, and I just use my fingers.
Your fingers?
Yeah, I just do it all.
Not even the mouse?
Oh, man.
What Tim was talking about is I have one of those Wacom, whatever you say.
Oh, yeah, those are pretty nice.
Tablets. I have the small.
I put one on my wish list for Christmas.
I have the small. It's really nice to use that thing, but I'm not great at it.
Yeah,
so that's a great tip, to bring back one of those images, adjust exposure, and then just use that image in a layer mask. So you'd have to do that in Photoshop.
Yeah, and that will also help you with things like trees. Now, the trees you can either handle in Photomatics by deghosting. So, especially like if you're shooting a building or you have people that you can deghost them out, or you can use a layer mask to get rid of that. So.
Well, then you're talking about deghosting out. Like, you got this picture, and I believe it's the French restaurant down in Epcot.
Yeah.
You got the people there, and obviously that's a multi-exposure picture, and they're obviously not standing there for you, which you really can't expect them to. Now, was that a shot was that an image you wanted to keep there with the ghosting of the people?
Yeah, I actually wanted the ghosts in there. I thought it looked kind of cool.
I think I posted in a chat before. It's the best I've ever seen the restaurant, and this is better than what the eye sees in my eyes.
Yeah, there was two things going on that night, and if I actually pulled up the RAWs, and I think this one has been archived at this point, but if I were to actually pull up the RAWs, the sky you will see is actually almost exactly like that. Now, I use with Photomatics, I gravitate towards a surreal look, so I just have an attraction to not things that are perfect. You know, like if for me we're going to listen to Mozart or we're going to listen to Beethoven, we're going to listen to Beethoven because it's going to be powerful and it's going to be dark and it's going to take you on an emotional ride. That's what I tend to gravitate towards for the images that I create. So this night it was I thought I was going to get hit by lightning because those clouds were pink like that and it was real. So you know, but I did, you know, I did pump up the saturation a little bit of the blues and the reds to get them on the building. And then the ghosts. Now, there is something I would change about this image. I do love the ghosts. What I've always kind of not liked is the feet right at the bottom on the people right in front.
Right in front, because they stood there a little longer, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Or they walked a little bit slower. So I've actually thought about going back and then recropping this just a little bit to take those feet out, or I could, you know, if I wanted.
Probably clone them out also.
Yeah, exactly, or clone them out. But you know, when I posted this, everybody's going, "Oh, it's so many ghosts," and I'm like, "Yeah, but I wanted this feeling that there are a lot of people, and it's just this alive, you know, motion scene." So some people will call that a mistake. I kind of was going for it. So I was listening to Rick Salmon the other day, and he said, you know, 1 autofocus shot is a mistake, 20 is a style. So,
you know, where was that? I heard that too. Oh, on Twit Photo.
It was on Twit Photo. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. That was awesome. I love that.
Yeah, I love that.
So I guess you say using Photomatics. Now I've used that's also what I use for HDR processing when the limited times I do it, and actually I probably did it most of the times down in Disney. What setting are you using? Are you using Fuse? Are you using Tone Map? Because that's where I get confused over in Photomatics. Which one should I use? Which one? Well, what do you use mainly, I guess?
Yeah, if you want to have a lot of fun, just go with Painterly.
Painterly?
Painterly a lot.
Oh, maybe.
Whatever you want. You know, don't hit the grunge button. But you know, start out there. If I'm shooting and it's a night scene, I'll use Fusion because it will not, you know, kill the sky for me. But you know, there are, and I don't think you have it. I'll show it to you if you like Disney shots. Let me share my screen again here.
You know, you had mentioned. Oh, is that one not out there?
I don't know if it is. I've got 2 versions of this one. So I've got the color version of it.
That Coke one.
Tara.
I've seen that Coke one somewhere. I don't know if that one is in this or not. There it is. Yeah,
I think it is. But this one here was, you know, this is, I believe, the black and white preset. I think I went back.
It makes it look like Twilight.
Yeah, it makes it look, and you know, my wife liked this one, and I was like, no, let's go dark and gloomy and dark. You know, it's dark, it's great, and but yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Mike knows I make an annual pilgrimage down to Disney, and I think this is going to change some of the photography I take the next time I go down there. I'm going to look at it differently because I've taken probably every picture I can think of, other than obviously my son's growing up. It'll be 10 years old next year. But how many pictures can I have actually of the castle, my wife will say? I mean, I probably got 5,000 pictures of Cinderella's castle, but now it'll give me an opportunity, and Mike knows we talked about it previously. I usually take it at the blue hour time to get the deep blue sky. So this is going to give me an opportunity to take these pictures and get a little bit more made fun of by my wife and saying, how many times are you going to take the same picture?
Can you go back to that photo? I didn't get it in the chat before you finish.
Tara in black and white, I think he was talking about.
Yeah, the black and white.
So this one's the color version, and then this one is the black and white. So, but you know, you can use black and white. Like I'll show you another black and white. This is a black and white tone map, or you know, this black and white HDR. So it doesn't have to be strictly vibrant colors. You can also do. You guys are going to get mad at me, but you know, we were talking about multiple exposures, but you can also do like this is a single raw HDR.
Yeah, I've done some of that.
And especially when you have, you know, like this one is also a single raw HDR.
What do you mean a single raw?
So I just use one image and I'll run it through Photomatics. And if you're going to do single raw, what works out really well is things with textures. By the way, just as an aside.
Right, like the walls here have a lot of texture in them.
Exactly, a lot of colors and textures, so it will end up bringing them up. And that was a windy day. Actually, you can see some of the trees blowing a little bit. Yeah. So one image was the best that I could do with it. So,
Tim, isn't this awesome how in Google Plus you can share your screen?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It just means that the other person's got to prepare a little bit more too. Got to know where everything is.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Now, Ali, you had mentioned surreal versus realistic.
Yeah.
And I tend to go a little bit more toward the surreal also.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that people, when they start talking about HDR, that seems to be the negative, that people talk bad about HDR, that it looks like a painting or it doesn't look real. I like that look. Like I have the one here, Coke.
Oh yeah.
I love this shot of yours.
Yeah, I happen to get lucky in that people. Well, we were clearing out, or the parks were clearing out, so I just kind of hung back. This is Hollywood Studios, and I took that shot, and it worked out really well. And I used layer masks there as well. I ended up using one layer where I pumped up the HDR effect to where most people who will say I hate HDR would have looked at it and said, I don't like HDR.
Yeah.
But and then I turned down the transparency on that layer, so you really can't see it, but you have a little bit of it in there. But if you can, try different things. Stay late. Stay when people aren't there. You'll be surprised what you can get.
Now, obviously you're having to walk around Disney with your tripod, and you're probably not going with a light little travel type tripod. You're going with your nice heavy tripod and ball head.
God, what's he got? It sounds like he's got pipes back there.
Yeah, no, little plate back there, but.
So let me bring
by the way, I'm not sponsored by them. I have nothing to gain by telling you about this tripod, but it is absolutely phenomenal, and it's made by Enduro, and it's it's easy to open and close up real quick, and the legs open up pretty easy. You can lock them down pretty easy.
What's the material made of?
This is aluminum.
Okay.
It weighs about a little bit over 5 pounds. No, it's a bit heavier with the the big Manfrotto head that I have on here, but it's really actually fairly light. And
what was the name of that again?
Enduro, Induro.
Okay.
So I actually got to contact them because I'm going to be doing pretty soon on Google Plus. I'm going to be doing a contest. I'm going to be giving away a copy of Photomatics, and I'm going to see if Enduro will give away one of their tripods and see maybe if we can get a relationship going on with them. But I've been I bought this thinking, we'll see how it goes. But it's just nothing but wonderful for me. So.
Yeah, I have, if you can see it back here somewhere, wherever it is.
Yeah, you're pointing to it.
I can't point very well with the way this is, but I have a Gitzo carbon fiber with a Real-Right stuffed ball head, and I think it can get heavy, and it's got the legs. You turn a dial on a leg and it slips out, and I can stabilize it pretty good and level it really good because it has all the levels on it. Yeah. But yours seems to be so much faster in setup than what mine is.
Yeah, so like you can see right here, it's not, but I just go like this, and then boom, both are out.
Oh, really? Oh, that's pretty cool.
How does it lock?
That's it. Now they're locked. And then for here, and you can see it's a little latch, but I take the latch out. And then
mine has that as well, but mine I have those D-clip type styles on 3 different levels to open up my tripod.
So
I paid $80 for this.
That's my next question. $80. Okay,
that's not bad.
That's quite a bit cheaper than that carbon fiber thing.
It's taken quite a bit of abuse. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would have loved a carbon fiber and whatnot, but I'm not out hiking in the woods, for days on end to where 0.4 pounds was going to matter for me. So I just said, for the couple $100 worth of difference, maybe even more.
Yeah, but carrying that around in Disney is got to be painful also. I mean, you do a lot of walking there as it is.
It's honestly not bad. So, when you come down, look me up and we'll go to the parks together if you want to go shoot. But I actually prefer to have my camera mounted on it because it balances out the weight. And I've carried, you'll see in my portfolio, I was down there for the 40th anniversary. I carried it around all day long. So I've got this, I've got my Grip 50D, usually the 17 to 40 L mounted on it, and then I carry Camelback, and I have the 70 to 200 in my camera bag, just kind of slung over in a little, very tiny, low pro bag that I just kind of keep it simple, and yeah, it really doesn't bother me at all. So.
Yeah, that thing looked lighter than what my carbon fiber is, though. I mean, that carbon fiber behind me is heavy.
Yeah, let me see how much it weighs. I forget at this point, but it's the Endura AT213. I should be able to get to it pretty quick.
And I cannot believe we're already at 920.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I was like, wow. You never think it's going to go fast, and
I've said this before. If Steven is somebody who comes out to the show almost every week, so he's probably tired of hearing me say this. Whoop.
Did we lose Tim?
Must have lost Tim.
No, he might. Don't come back.
He said, "Nope, I'm out. It's too late. You're running too long."
Oh, sorry. But
No.
This weighs 4.4 pounds, by the way.
He didn't say that. He must have had a problem.
No.
The only thing is he may not know how to get back in. This is his first time doing it. So let me send him another invite.
Yeah, send him an invite again.
But I always say, I hope I have enough material to make it past the first 10 minutes. I'm always worried that 10 minutes into the show we're going to run out, and here we are. I'm looking down, and we're an hour and 20 minutes into the show, and I could keep going on. I love HDR, and I love talking to you about HDR. And this has been a very, very informative show. Tim, did we get you back?
I got back in, and I got to say one thing. This is going to help me want to take more HDR type pictures, so I appreciate it.
Well, look me up when you do, and if you just want to,
Well, I'll be down there next August.
Oh, really?
Actually,
Great.
They got a Star Wars convention first at the Orlando Convention Center. Ooh. That my son wants to go, and I'm going to be down there. Going to spend a couple of days at Universal, and then another week and a half back to Disney.
No, well,
so I will look you up for sure.
Yeah, look me up, or even before then, if you're shooting and you want to do a quick hangout. And
okay. Oh, yeah. I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait till next August. That's a long way off.
Here's that. You did have that building shot out there in your on Google Plus.
Which one? Oh, the
blue one.
Yeah.
The blue building.
What building is that?
Oh, you had this one too. Oh, I wish I had crap. What did I just do?
Yeah, that was the Comerica building in downtown Orlando. So let me share my screen real quick.
Let me get back to that one. Hold on, guys.
Let's see.
I know you're seeing a whole bunch of good ones.
So I wanted to shoot this fountain, which, by the way, is probably the most difficult shot I've ever worked on.
We have that somewhere here too.
Yeah. So this is the Lake Eola fountain.
And hold on, I got to find that.
Every time I look at that, it makes me mad because I remember how long I worked on it. But so right behind it was this building, and in downtown Orlando was this building. So I needed to wait for the fountain to get dark enough to get this. So I just walked around and shot as much as I could.
Okay, I got the fountain.
I had fun that night. So.
The one thing here in Google Plus is I don't know how to make the image bigger. Some of your images come through bigger than others. And I can shrink the little comment window, but then they don't always get bigger. So like this one is bigger. All right, Tim, I'm going to go back to that to this one because I know Tim likes this photo.
Yeah. Almost looks like something I took.
Yeah. Now this can't be HDR. The one I got pulled up now.
I don't know. I think it might be HDR though.
That one is actually an HDR, and it's also a composite.
Yeah, I was gonna say because you see the streaks in different directions off on the right.
Yeah. Well, so this is the Lake Eola fountain, and let me see if I have the laws.
Hold on.
We're talking about two different pictures.
We're talking about two different pictures.
Oh, you're talking about the Disney photo?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fireworks one.
That is not an HDR.
It's not, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know how you do that one in HDR. But let's go back to do you have that I think you have that photo you were just talking about here on yeah, here it is. I got it pulled up. This is the one
fountain.
you're saying is HDR and it's a composite?
Yeah, so this shot was just sort of a bear to create in every possible way. One, I had to wait forever because the fountain has multiple stages throughout the night, or every few minutes it cycles. So sometimes you'll get this long stream of water flowing right out of it. Sometimes you'll get just kind of the water kind of like you see it right there. So, and I got there probably at about 5:30, maybe 6 o'clock. So I had to wait about 3 hours, for it to get dark enough after I got done shooting everything else that I wanted to shoot. And from there, I had to. And now we're shooting these super long exposures. I mean, let me just give you an idea of how long these were. These were so. Let's see, 6 seconds at the low end. Let's see. I'm going through these. Sorry.
That's okay.
Right, so maybe we should. I'm going through, but 1/13, 6 seconds. But now, don't forget, I'm shooting 4 exposures. So I'm shooting -2, 0, and then +2, and then what I'm shooting is a 4th exposure to for long exposure noise reduction. So the camera, I shoot a black frame, and actually I don't have to do that. It's a node that I set in there. But what it does is it shoots a black frame, and it will just get all the noise, and then it will subtract the noise from any other image that you shot that's over a second long.
Okay.
So if I shot for 6 seconds on the longest one, and let's say 4 and 2, so that's 10, 12, and then 18 seconds for every single, go through that I wanted to run through. Then, so I mean, you do that about 10 times, you're easily there for 10 minutes, and this doesn't factor in all the time that you spent moving around, and now there's a light in the background, or oops, there went by a car and whatnot. So, but what I couldn't wrap my head around was, or what I had difficulty was this stream just in the middle of the shot that went up. So if you captured it just right, you would get it just as it was going up. But then if you waited too long, then it was completely out of the frame. So I actually took the bottom part. Actually took the image, HDR'd it. Actually, you know what? You guys want to see kind of like behind the...
Yeah, we definitely want to see behind the scenes.
Education is always good.
All right, so...
And we'll go ahead and wrap up with this last photo.
Sure.
And we'll do the behind the scenes. And if you don't mind, afterwards, hang out for just a couple of minutes, and we'll see if there's any questions in chat that we didn't get to.
Sure. So let me turn on my screen sharing here. So
come back over to this.
All right. So this was one of the images. So was this one, and this is kind of the tone mapped image. But I really was much more in love with this black image that I saw here, just the black background.
I would agree.
Yeah, so
it doesn't detract from the picture, right?
Exactly. So the sky was a little bit messy, and then, I mean, here. I'll show you some of the raws. And these are some of the raws.
That almost looks like an infrared type picture, the way that was.
Yeah, or it's like some kind of UFO, right? So the raws aren't very far off from what I created. So what I ended up doing was taking the top part from, let's say, I forget which image it was. Sorry, I'm flipping through these too quickly, I know. But I ended up taking the top part, I believe, of one of these, and then pasting it in over here, and then taking the stream and then just kind of brushing that out so that I didn't have it going all the way up. But the bottom part here of the fountain, let's say from right here on down, is all one exposure at about 5 or something seconds. But to get it just right, to get, there was texture in here that I wanted, and I wanted the water to be smooth. It was, I don't even remember how many layers it was at this point, but I easily worked on this one for 3 hours.
That's going to be the next question, is how much time did you work on that?
Yeah, it was too long. It was too long. Because, you make a mistake. And then what I also wanted, you see this right here, how it kind of comes in like this?
Yeah.
I was really adamant about that triangular shape. So that's actually the vignette that serves no purpose other than to create that, because otherwise you see how this here is much more rectangular.
Yeah.
I didn't like that very much. I
was looking at the one on Google Plus, and I could see the vignette, and it really adds to the image.
Yeah, so I personally hate vignetting. I'll use it, but I'll use it very, very. Don't get me wrong. I have a few images out there where, if you look at it, boom, it's got a strong vignette. But I try to use it very, very subtly. But here, I really wanted the effect. So
in this one, since the top is black, you only see the vignette there in the bottom.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. You don't know it's there. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, we really appreciate you coming out tonight and sharing all this with us. And as usual, we weren't able to get to everything, which that's good for us. Which just means we can have you back on some other time. We have a chance. And I will put in the show notes, your site here, the Certain Point of View, and your Google Plus thing. And you have a show every Monday night. Where can people see that show?
Yeah, so if you're on Google Plus, and if you have me circled, 9 p.m. Eastern, we get together, me and Shane and a few other folks, and we have people streaming in all night. So just look out in the stream. We usually announce it the latest on Saturday, just to kind of, hey, this is what we're doing this week, and then with reminders throughout the day on Sunday and Monday. But look for that. The only time I can see that we won't be doing it, or I won't be there, will be probably in December, where I'll be off in Jerusalem. I have some nonprofit work that I do out there. And also mid-2012, I'll be out there again. And if you're interested in going out to Jerusalem for a photo workshop, look me up. That's going to be pretty cool. But other than that, you can find us there. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay. And if they missed the live show, can they see it after the fact?
Yeah, I actually in my both in my stream and on the blog, on my blog on www.certainpointofview.com, I've got the episodes there as well. So, and I have a Facebook page as well. Also, I could get everybody to migrate to Google Plus and Facebook. I'm kind of self-conscious about posting too many of my images on my wall on Facebook because friends are like, you're trying to show off. So I created a fan page. I'm like, okay, if you want to see my stuff, it's there. So if you're not on Google Plus, you can catch the shows there as well. So.
Okay, well, I'll try and find that and put it in the show notes too, so people can go see that too.
Good.
And I'd like to remind everybody, Tim mentioned earlier, we have the audio feed, we have 2 video feeds, video large, video small. I've done a lot of work to get the video feed to be much smaller. Lee, when I was first doing these, the large file was 750 meg, and it's huge. Since I now can get them down to 200 meg or so, so it actually is a little bit bigger resolution. The image quality is just as good, if not better, and it's a third of the size in file size. So
and my iPad thanks you.
Yes.
Yes. So does my iPhone. Actually, I tried downloading a couple of your early shows. I'm like, wow.
What the heck is this?
I know. Sorry about that, but
Oh no, don't worry about it.
we're like I've said before. I learn something from every show. May not get better every show, but hopefully we're getting better over time. And that's if you're an early adopter, this is show 14. If you're an early adopter,
I got to tell you, you've only been doing this for a very short period of time, but you guys really do keep the pace going, and you're really good in terms of just keeping the conversation. And we're learning from you guys. So.
Thank you. Yeah. We're learning from everybody else and making tons of mistakes. But
Mike, not sure if you just saw the post in the chat about the large feed failing in Zune.
Yeah. So I guess, Andy, I need to go back and re-encode those prior ones, maybe. I haven't done that yet, but I was, when I first started doing this, I was using QuickTime Pro to do them. It was taking 7 freaking hours. I have a beast of a machine over here. It's a 6-core machine. It's really good, but it would only use 1 core, so it took 5 to 7 hours to do it.
Wow.
So I've now am using Handbrake. And after a lot of testing, I found some settings I like, and I can now do it because it will use all 6 cores. I can do it in 20 minutes.
Wow, yeah,
so,
that's a huge difference.
So I think that when it was taking 5 to 7 hours with QuickTime. I wasn't going to go back and do those old feeds. Maybe now that it only takes 20 minutes, I should go back and do those. But I say that because there's a lot of stuff we went over today that really you benefit from seeing the video feed of this.
Right.
I know some people may be like me and they listen to I listen to them in a gym, and I like to listen to audio ones. Well, I do two things in the gym: weights and elliptical. It may not show, but I'm getting better. I'm trying to go 4 times a week. But when I'm on the weights, I like audio podcasts. When I'm on the elliptical, I do video podcasts.
Sure.
So some people may only want the audio, but I would say you may want to check out the video every now and then. And another key for us is something you can do to help us out is to go to iTunes. I'm not just talking to you, Lee. I'm talking to anybody listening. Go to iTunes and leave a little comment on iTunes to help us move up the rankings and people find us.
Sure.
And so, we'll talk to you later about coming back another time and going over some more stuff. You have a lot of stuff we didn't get to go over tonight, but we do appreciate you coming out.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
And we'll end the live show. We'll hang out just for a few minutes with the chat and see if we missed anything. So, did my video freeze? It's frozen on there. No, it's fine now.
No, you look good here.
Okay. All right. So good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming.
Good night, everyone.